Yeah. So hi, Sujay. Welcome to the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah. So the purpose of this podcast, the agenda of today is that we are going to discuss what are the challenges one face basically when they start their career during, especially in the initial years. So in this series, I am discussing basically those challenges. So I am basically doing it two part. One, I am trying to basically understand what are the challenges from the people who have been there for around 1 year, and then basically because I am trying to figure it out that how the senior people who have been there around 3 or 4 years, how they have been through that, right? Because software development is a journey, and they have been through that journey. So maybe
Yeah.
they can basically help us basically a bit better that how they went through that journey, and so that, and also how how we can grow ourselves within that journey, right?
Yeah.
So this is going to be the agenda for the discussion, but I think we will start with your introduction. So yeah, first I think let me introduce you first because yeah, I've been going through that. So I think you are working as a senior front-end engineer at Razorpay,
Yeah.
and you graduated in 2016. And when I was going through your profile, the interesting part is you have done basically maths and computing, right, from ISM masters.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So, if I talk about how I got here, so I did integrated masters in mathematics and computing. So I joined ISM back in 2011, and by the time I quit ISM, it had become into an IIT.
Okay.
Uh, so it was an integrated course, lasted for 5 years. Uh, so the biggest highlight I would say of my college, I think there are two. One is that I actually spent some time developing my own operating system.
Oh, right.
So we had a OS course, I think in eighth semester or ninth semester. Is it?
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere around that. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. I like OS. I want to know more about it. So how should I actually do this course? So I actually went ahead and implemented my own OS.
Okay.
And I had a talk with the professor, and he was like, "Oh, this is pretty cool. So maybe you can describe your own OS in a paper."
Okay.
And a lot of things which I wrote in the final paper of that course
Right.
was coming out of my OS itself.
Okay.
So it's available on my GitHub, but I did not have much time, following up on it. So it has been barren for like 3 4 years now.
Yeah, that's a great thing. Yeah, that's it.
And then after college, the surprising thing is that, one more thing. I actually organized something called Hackfest, which was like a hackathon
Okay.
back in my final year, the fifth year.
Okay.
So the goal was to get people, get my juniors basically up to date with whatever the latest technology is happening and make them create something, that is very much relevant to today. And a lot of my juniors actually went ahead and used the Hackfest projects in their portfolio and got some very decent jobs.
Okay.
So that these two are like the highlight of my college life. Uh, if I talk about my professional career, I moved to Sapient. Sapient is a pretty good consulting company,
Right.
and they basically drilled inside me whatever non-tech stuff I had to learn about the jobs. Because
Okay.
see, a lot of college kids assume the only thing that you're supposed to do in a job is like write code.
Yes. Yes.
That is
Absolutely.
absolutely not the case,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You should learn how to actually talk with people. You should know how to make someone do something that you want, you
Right.
know, in as much polite way as possible,
Right. Right.
right? Because if you're interacting with a lot of people, there are multiple teams, and you are just a junior developer. You want them to do something, right? And you want them to do something soon,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
How should you communicate that? So these kind of skills I learned from Sapient, and it was a very good experience. Then I moved to Fab Hotels, so that was my first startup experience,
Okay.
and I met some really amazing people there.
Okay.
Uh, the CTO there, Anant Mishra, he's like a very good guy. He basically pulled me into performance optimization.
Okay.
So the task that he gave me was that they are working on business. He wanted us to exceed from the technical point of view. So whatever competitors we had, for example, Make My Trip, Oyo, right?
Yeah.
We should have like a faster website than them.
Okay.
Because I think Google released a white paper during that time, I think in 2018 or something, where they discussed that, if you improve your page's load time, right, the customer has higher probability to convert.
Right, absolutely.
So your website should not come in the way of a customer and the customer buying your product.
Right, yeah.
Like, the customer should feel that it's as smooth as possible, right? So we actually started at around 16 seconds of load time, and by the time I exited Fabulous, we had brought it down to around 3.5 seconds.
Yeah.
So that was that, and I started to realize that I had some interest into DevOps as well. So
Okay.
we kind of, me and my friend Prashant, we kind of like moved the whole web infrastructure from EC2 to AWS ECS.
Okay.
So into a container basically.
Okay.
So that was at Fabulous. I moved to Houghton for like I think around 8-9 months. It was a short stint. Uh, Somehow the market was not good, and I personally did not like the work that much at that point of time.
Okay.
Maybe people will have a different opinion right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in those 8-9 months, I focused a lot on the DevOps side of things. So I like helped them set up their dev server for frontend.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So what I've noticed is a lot of places people do not have proper infrastructure for especially frontend.
Yeah.
Because backend they have all the pipelines ready.
Right. Yeah.
Even in Fabulous, it was the same scenario. Even in housing, it was the same scenario. People were like testing from their own laptop. There were no CI/CD there or something like that.
Right.
So that I set up the dev servers there. But I ended up moving from there. So I moved to Urban Clap.
Okay.
It was called Urban Clap then. Then it changed to Urban Company.
Right. Yeah.
At Urban Company, I kind of did different things, So earlier, the first half of my career was focused on all the tech skills.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Performance, optimization, Docker, Node.js, whatever. At Urban Clap, I started moving slowly on the business side of things as well.
Okay.
So not just doing pure development, but coordinating with product managers, sometimes coming with your own business ideas, right? And then testing it, how it goes. So, like, we used to do a lot of experiments in our lab.
Okay.
Like, we used to send A/B. We used to do A/B testing daily.
Yeah.
Right? And we observed, and it was one of the biggest revelations that even the smallest of text on your buttons can affect your conversion.
Okay. Yeah.
At times, you do not think about it that much, and you kind of write anything that you like. But if you focus on whatever is written, the copy of the website, right?
Right. Yeah.
It will drastically improve your conversion. So there's that. Then I spent some time on a cross-platform UI library where we were trying to eliminate front-end work at Urban Lab. We wanted to even a back-end developer should be able to write UI using only JavaScript, no React or whatever.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
So something sort of a low-code framework.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So we did that. That was like my last project at Urban Lab.
Mm-hmm.
Then I moved to Razorpay, and like this is my first time working at a fintech B2B.
Yeah.
Things are a bit different in B2B as well, I would say, compared to a B2C. But anyway, so yeah, I've been like creating small apps, and one thing that I'm doing right now at Razorpay is I'm helping them migrate their whole code base into TypeScript. Currently, the whole code base is written in JavaScript.
Okay.
So I introduced the initial doc where I convinced people that we should actually go ahead and move to TypeScript. And then like that's what we are currently doing.
Yeah.
Kind of a very big summary. I think I spent around 5-10 minutes on it.
Yeah,
But
I know,
like the whole summary of my career and what I've done.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. So the 2 points that I want to basically the thing is that we mentioned that when you basically got into the corporate world, the first job that you got in the Sapiens, you was mentioning that that you basically it changed somewhere around that when you move from a college grad to a corporate life, right? In college, our way of dealing things, our thinking are very different than moving into the corporate life, right? One such example you give that in college life we think that a corporate life or a software developer job is just writing code, but which is not. There's a lot more than that, right? So. Did you face any kind of challenges basically during your initial days of your life, and what are those if there was any?
So to be very honest, I would say I used to be very aggressive just when I was just out of college.
Mm-hmm.
Like so I was very proud of the tech work that I had done.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But from a perspective of someone who has joined a new company and he's not yet familiar with the corporate world,
Right.
I did not know how to, get someone who is like 10, 12 years older than me to get them do something that I want.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because even when you are in college, the most you are working is with a senior who is like 2, 3 years older than you.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
But suppose you come out of your college, you go to a company like Sapient, there are like 16, 17 years experienced people there.
Right. Yes.
And at times they're working in a separate team. And at times you get a particular project. So for example, they're working in a backend, right? You want some API to change.
Right.
And it has been quite some time and you want it to be changed ASAP.
Okay.
Right? So then comes the question, okay, you need to talk with the manager. Now manager is someone who has like 10, 12 years of experience. How would you actually communicate that? And communicate that in a very effective way so that the manager can actually grasp, okay, this is what you're saying is important.
Right.
You cannot be aggressive about it.
Yeah, obviously.
That is not the way to deal with such things. So, but what I've learned at Sapient is there are two things. One is aggressiveness and one is assertiveness.
Yeah.
People often confuse between the two. You need to be assertive, right? But in a very polite way.
Yeah.
There is a very thin line between कि यार इससे आगे कुछ बोलोगे तो aggressive लगेगा. So you need to stay behind that line, but you need to learn to present your case that okay, what I am saying is important.
Right.
How would you do that? One of the first things that you do is to prepare yourself. What you are going to say, right? Do you have the? Let's start with the technical perspective, right? Do you think what you're going to do is technically feasible, or what you're asking them to do is technically feasible? Where can they counter question you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Initially in your career, you have to prepare yourself. Over the time, you get used to it.
Yeah.
After like 2, 3 years into the market, you kind of know what they will ask in return, right? But in the very initial part of your career, you spit something and they ask you something that you have no clue about.
Yeah.
Right? So it happens with everyone.
Yeah.
So there is no shame in it, but the way you handle it, right? The way you respond to it. Sometimes it's okay to say that you do not know. Right? It's okay to say, okay, I'll get back to you on this. I do not know this at this point.
Right.
Most people think यार मैं बोलूँगा कि मुझे नहीं आता तो फिर like मेरा मजाक उड़ जाएगा ये जाएगा.
Yeah.
But believe me, people appreciate honesty in these kind of things because you're very young in your career. It's very difficult to bullshit your way out of this.
Yeah.
ठीक है. After 6, 7 years or maybe 8, 10 years, maybe you will be able to get away, right? कुछ भी बोल लो थोड़ा बहुत ऊपर से तो maybe that can happen. But very initially in your career, it's very difficult to pull that off, right? So you should learn when to pitch something, what to expect, what the person in front of you would tell you, would ask you about it, and you should be prepared.
Right. Absolutely.
And this preparedness helps everyone, not just you, but also your project.
Yeah.
Because if you are prepared about it, that means that you know the project deep down.
Right. Yes. Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. And it will help you grow.
Yeah. Yeah, so here is, I mean, you were a bit aggressive and assertive, and maybe because you have a pretty, I mean, you have already done some work in the OS, you have been in this, I mean, you know the gist of the how tech works, right? But for example, suppose that someone comes into, and I want to basically relate this problem with the people who have just getting into the industry right now. People basically come from a different background. Someone coming from, suppose that they have come from a tier 3 college, and they have not much work done behind the scene, and they have not that kind of assertive or aggressive nature. So what, when they join the organization, what they feel is that sometimes they comes up with a very high first very low self belief, right? And when they get into an organization, the first question that everyone asks is that, okay, what are the expected what is basically getting expected from me, whether I will be able to cope up with that or not. I have seen many much people asking me that, okay, I have selected for this job. Am I really confident enough? Can I basically cope up with the work or not? So my question is here with you is that someone coming from this thing, what is basically the how generally basically company what they expect from a fresher in generally 2 3 months of their initial career, and how can a person who's joining in can basically do what are the things they can do to be basically, because first impression matters a lot, that is one thing, right? So how can they do to I mean get a first good impression?
Cool. So, like, you asked me 2 3 questions, so I'll answer them one by one.
Yeah.
So, first question is about tier 2, tier 3 colleges, right? Uh, if you have gotten yourself in a decent company, by decent company, I mean a company whose workplace is not shitty.
Yeah.
Right? There are some companies which are very abusive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They exist.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you have gotten into a decent company, it doesn't matter from which college you are from.
Right.
Right? Half of the time, the people I work with, I do not know कि वो कौन से college से हैं. Right?
Yeah.
I am from IIT, ठीक है. But I have never been like कि मैं IIT से हूँ, मैं भोपाल. Right? People do not discuss these things.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Especially initially in their career, maybe some people may do that. Right?
Yeah.
But I think you should learn to ignore those kind of people. ठीक है. They also learn within a year, वो भी सुधर जाते हैं. And after some time you feel कि okay, no one is asking about कि यार तुम third year college में या तुम second year college में. Right? So if that is the case, then you should never feel any sort of inferiority complex inside you.
Okay.
Obviously, शुरू में आने में people will feel, right? कि people look कि यार मैं तो third year college में, तो that is a negative something on my CV. And during interview तो people treat badly, वो तो मेरे को पता है. Right? During interview tier 3 colleges वाले लोगों को उतना अच्छे से वो preference नहीं मिलता. Right? Yeah. But after you have gotten into the job, right? That is behind you. Okay. So whatever way you have been treated before or maybe during the interview, I'm not sure. But once you are inside, right, you should put that behind and learn how to be assertive. Mm-hmm. Your second question was, what is the expectation of someone who is new? Right? Yeah. No one expects you to know everything. In fact, most of the time, work with some very junior developers. Most of the time, we do not expect them to know anything at all. Okay. Mm-hmm. So a company who is hiring very junior developers, they assume कि यार इसको 1-2 महीने का training somehow लगेगा. Even though the training is not an official training, right? Sometimes the training is usually unofficial where they assign you a buddy and you work with that buddy for some time and build up your skills. The biggest thing that we look in a developer who is young or who is new into the workforce is their aptitude to learn. Yeah. That is it. Okay. मतलब so if I say यार git पढ़ के आना था, ठीक है? You should be very active about it because things like git, right? They are used everywhere. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So you may not have used Git in your college, but if you are coming out to a job, at least get familiar with this, right? And if someone talks to you about it, if he says कि यार Git rebase ले लेना, ठीक है? and you do not have any clue कि git rebase क्या
क्या
होता
होता है, सही बात.
then you can do two things. Depending on who is asking, right?
Yeah.
You can ask them, right? Or you can say, okay, I'll do that. You should quickly look कि ये क्या है rebase.
Right.
एक वो अंदर से एक एप्टीट्यूड होना चाहिए. So a lot of people what they do is कि यार मडिया देते हैं. When you start getting to that mode, your growth stops.
Right. Yeah.
You could be in a mode कि okay, this is a challenge that I face. I have no clue what git rebase is. The first thing that you should do is to take care of that.
Exactly.
ये जो agility है ना, to learn something that is new, if you keep it up, right, you will grow and people will appreciate you कि यार कल तो इस बंदे को git भी नहीं आता था, आज वो मुझे बता रहा है rebase क्या होता है, something like that.
Right. Yeah.
So if a new developer is able to take care of these little things, he should have like a thirst for knowledge कि यार क्या चल रहा है कंपनी में, how my product is working. That is point one. In fact, I would suggest कि if you join a product company, first thing that you should do is to know the product.
Right. Yeah.
If you know the product, you're halfway there. Like, I've seen some developers who have no clue what the product is, and I've seen them struggle, even though they were excellent coders.
Right. Yeah.
Because as I've said earlier, right, this job is not, I would say it's like 50% coding and 50% other things.
Yeah. Absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, and so yeah, the answer for that, as I can understand it, basically it's okay that you don't have much knowledge, but you should have the hunger for learning things. You should show proactiveness, and you should basically have that hunger, and that is what I think people expect you.
Yeah, and you should know, right? If you have joined a decent team, right? People would assume कि तुम्हें कुछ नहीं आता, and it's fine. Like I was training some interns back when I was in Capitals, right? And उस समय मेरा experience I think 2.5 years something का था. When at that point of time I knew कि यार ये बंदा आया, इसको कुछ नहीं पता होगा, कोई बात नहीं. इसको I chart a plan कि यार ये करना है तुम्हें. So get hold of someone who has time to give you, right? And maybe talk with your manager. If you are facing challenges, definitely get your manager involved. Talk with them. Okay, I'm having difficulty in learning some. If you have some difficulties, right?
Yeah.
Talk with him and ask him to let's chart out a plan together.
Right.
How should I grow? And अपने मैनेजर को इस तरह से बात में लूप में रखोगे ना, तो it will be like very good for your career.
Yeah.
Talk with your manager about how can you grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Show them that you want to grow.
एक और पॉइंट है इसमें जो कि आई थिंक जो मैंने भी फेस किया था या बहुत लोग करते भी हैं कि इनिशियल डेज में क्या होता है कि सपोज यू आर असाइंड अ फर्स्ट आफ्टर इनिशियल ट्रेनिंग, आपको फर्स्ट प्रोजेक्ट मिला, टास्क मिला, एंड यू आर डूइंग दैट, बट इन दैट प्रोसेस में भी उतनी क्लैरिटी नहीं होती है प्रोडक्ट के बारे में, कोड बेस के बारे में, क्या करनी है क्या नहीं है. तो उसमें क्या होता है कि समटाइम वी टेंड टू आस्क आइदर जो बड़ी मिला उससे, या फिर मे बी समवन हु हैव डन द वर्क इन दैट, अगर तुमको किसी के साथ असाइन किया गया है. सो व्हाट वी फील कि अगर बहुत सारे क्वेश्चन होते हैं पहली बात तो करने के लिए कि ये कैसे होगा, ये कैसे होगा, कैसे होगा, तो एक अगर हम क्वेश्चन पूछना स्टार्ट करते हैं बहुत सारा, तो कभी दिमाग में आता है यार मैं ज़्यादा तो क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछ रहा कि इससे क्या हो, सामने वालों को ये लगे कि मतलब इससे तो कुछ नहीं आता है, या दे कैन हैव अ बैड इंप्रेशन फॉर यू. तो दिस इज अ नॉर्मल ह्यूमन फीलिंग दैट कम्स, एंड दिस, तो ये आई वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड ये नॉर्मल है या इसको कैसे हैंडल करें.
How do I deal with it right now? अब luckily शुरू के करियर में मुझे ये वाला चैलेंज नहीं आया, to be very honest. ठीक है, somehow I got assigned to a project जिसमें थोड़ा relatively आसान था चीज़ें, तो I was kind of lucky that time. But how I solve it right now is, for example, when I joined Razorpay, I was working on their vendor teams too. So I got hold of the product manager. I said कि I'm booking 1 hour of yours, ठीक है, and you have to go through, मतलब मुझे समझाओ कि इस प्रोडक्ट में क्या है, right? At times it may happen that the person in front of you does not have time, right? Discuss with them कि if you can take this offline, if you can maybe collate all your doubts together in a day, and at the end of the day you can tell him कि these are the doubts, and आप अपने हिसाब से respond करो, right? So you need to talk with people, right? And you need to talk with your manager. You need to tell your manager कि the best way आप मेरे अंदर का best potential तभी निकाल पाओगे when I am informed about what is going on, right? Be open with your manager. figure out if your manager is willing to listen or not. और नहीं तो फिर escalate करो, ठीक है? But usually managers are very sensitive about it. Good managers at least, right? And tell your manager कि I am like I know want to know these things for me to show my best, right?
Yeah.
And like a good manager will appreciate you. He will probably assign you someone, ठीक है? But I would say कि एक बार खुद से approach करके देखो. Don't be afraid of talking, right? Try to get hold of a product manager and say, "Yaar, just give me half an hour of yours. Let me book a time. Let's go and get on Google Meet. These are the like questions that I have. We can discuss."
Okay.
Maybe talk with him कि यार आपके पास half an hour नहीं है तो मैं आपको दे दूंगा, आप मेरे को पूरा रात में आराम से बैठ के मेरे को बता देना जो भी है, right? So try to be straightforward. Sometimes try to do it with bhaichara, kind of things, right? Or if nothing works, then talk with your manager.
Yeah. Also, यहाँ पर here the main problem that comes is generally I think there is a communication problem that can sometimes happens, and especially when we are working remote. If you're working from the office, I think that problem generally doesn't occur. But I think people like me who have just graduated in 2020 have been working remotely from the day one. This is, I mean, there is a very huge communication gap. And for an example, if I'm getting stuck sometime, and because you are working remotely, right? So you are basically present. I mean, you are just feeling that someone is working with the team some around whenever you talk, which is around. Sometimes there is no meeting, so you don't feel that you are working in a team, right? So there is a communication, and you don't get used to, you don't get comfortable talking to them. So ये प्रॉब्लम आती है बहुत ज़्यादा कि वो एक गैप आ जाता है ना, और उसमें क्या होती है कि तुम ज़्यादा बात नहीं कर पाते हो, तुम्हारे कुछ भी डाउट होते हैं तुम रुक जाते हो, फिर बहुत देर बाद बात करते हो, मे बी इट्स मैनेजर और योर टीम मेट. सो ये कम्युनिकेशन जो ब्रीज होती है ना, ये ऑब्वियसली ये टीम के साइड से, कंपनी के साइड से भी इसमें एफर्ट आनी चाहिए. बट एज अ व्हेन वी आर, मतलब एज अ ज्वाइन द पर्सन हु इज ज्वाइनिंग इन, हाउ कैन दे ट्राई टू ब्रीज दिस गैप स्पेशली इन द रिमोट वर्क?
Yeah, see, first thing is, it's not just new joiners who are suffering because of remote work. I've seen a lot of experienced people as well who did not get to do remote work earlier, right? And suddenly because of COVID, we were like, "कि आपसे remote work करना है." So I have seen some very senior people suffer as well, but they adapted soon. Right? Things change and they kind of adapted. So the biggest thing that you should know about communication is कि if you do not communicate, ठीक है, you will not communicate.
Yeah.
No, I know I sound really stupid.
Yeah, I understand.
But so it's very similar to if you do not take your first step, you will not never be able to walk.
Yeah,
right?
yes.
So first step about communicating is to at least write the first word. Like, in fact, I will give you 3 words. ठीक है, I am blocked.
Yeah.
ठीक है, ये 3 वर्ड है. If you face any challenge where you think you have wasted like 2 hours, the rule of thumb है, suppose you have wasted 2 hours onto a problem and you have no clue what is going on, ping a senior person कि I am blocked, I need help.
Yeah.
ठीक है, this is the problem, help करो, मैं फंसा हूँ. And like if you have spent around 2-3 hours, तुमने अपनी तरफ से googling कर ली होगी. You would have gone through Stack Overflow, you would have googled something. If you are not able to figure out even after that, then probably you need help.
Yeah, right.
So you need to communicate that. I have spent 2 hours on this, 3 hours on this, whatever. I am blocked. This is the problem. I'm not able to solve it. Can you help?
Yeah.
At times इतना लिख दो, फिर सामने वाला खुद से आता है. सामने वाले के पास टाइम नहीं होगा तो फिर वो बोलेगा कि मेरे पास टाइम नहीं है, किसी और से पूछ लो. Go ask someone else. Right? One of the things that is good in Razorpay is यहाँ पे सारा कम्युनिकेशन पब्लिक चैनल्स में होता है. तो people discourage कि तुम पर्सनल मैसेज करो, especially for these kind of things.
Right? Yes.
If you face a challenge, if you're stuck and you are like नहीं हो पा रहा, don't be stuck for too long.
Yeah.
Razorpay में तो they encourage कि public channel में just tag the relevant person, put the whatever problems that you are having, right? And someone will help you.
Yeah.
It may not happen in all organizations, but उसमें वो तुम्हें उसको पता करना पड़ेगा कि हाँ किस तरह से चलता है. You can basically DM someone.
हाँ, आई थिंक इसका पब्लिकली का एक और फायदा होता है कि मे बी यू कैन टेक, अगर सेम प्रॉब्लम किसी और का आया तो तुम वहाँ पर और भी नॉलेज आ रही है तो उसका सॉल्यूशन कैसे होगा वो पब्लिकली अवेलेबल है, सो दैट्स अनदर एडवांटेज.
Exactly. And one another thing is कि for example, if we have like a tag for a Razorpay frontend.
Yeah.
Like there are Razorpay X frontend, there are like 30 developers.
Yeah.
ठीक है. And if you tag RXFE, ठीक है, तो any one of them can see and any one of them can respond कि यार इसको ऐसे fix करना.
Yeah.
Right? So one of the good things about having it in public is कि even if the person you have tagged does not have time, maybe someone else who has seen this problem and knows the solution will like ping you कि अच्छा this is how you solve it.
Yeah.
But the first step is to communicate कि यार I am blocked. If you do not communicate, you will not be able to communicate.
Yeah. And I think most of the people in the during initial days struggle just because of this, क्योंकि initial में पहली हम जब जॉब करते हैं तो सबसे ज़्यादा कम्युनिकेशन जरूरत वहीं पे पड़ती है, क्योंकि हमें बहुत सारे डाउट्स होते हैं, बहुत सारी चीज़ें हम यूज टू नहीं होती हैं, तो सबसे ज़्यादा कम्युनिकेशन का जरूरत पड़ता है और सबसे ज़्यादा हेजिटेंसी उसी टाइम पे ही होता है. आई थिंक उस टाइम हमें समझ में आ जाता है कि ठीक है ऐसे ये करनी है, सो इसीलिए आई थिंक या.
Well, see, like yes, there is definitely hesitancy, but the way I look at it is, ठीक है, कि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा क्या ही हो जाए. एक क्वेश्चन पूछ दे कि व्हाट्स द वर्स्ट दैट कैन हैपन. ठीक है, तुम्हारा मैनेजर आकर तुम्हें पीटेगा ना, डेफिनेटली नहीं. So worst case में he will say कि नहीं तुम बेवकूफ हो, तुम ये हो वो हो. ठीक है. If he is saying that is a signal that it is a bad workplace and that you should get away from that.
Yes.
Right? तो किसी भी हालत में तुम्हारे क्वेश्चन पूछने से, ठीक है, तुम्हारा कोई नेगेटिव बाहर नहीं आता. और तुम्हारे क्वेश्चन को कोई गलत तरह से रिस्पॉन्ड कर रहा है तो इट शोज कि दैट कंपनी और दैट मैनेजर इज नॉट अ ग्रेट मैनेजर. मे बी यू शुड लुक टुवर्ड्स चेंजिंग अ टीम और मे बी यू शुड लुक टुवर्ड्स चेंजिंग अ कंपनी.
या ठीक है. सो अभी आगे बढ़ते हैं थोड़ा सा. आई थिंक और ये सबके साथ हुआ होगा जब हमारे सबके डेवलपर के साथ होती है आवर फर्स्ट मिस्टेक, राइट, आवर फर्स्ट मिस्टेक एट वर्क प्लेस, एंड एवरीवन डज दैट. But first time it's really hard to take it, right? I mean, so I was talking with Sudhendra yesterday also, and I think I have also done that. So when we make our first mistake, it feels like that it's all our responsibility. We have make a blunder, and I mean, अब कंपनी डूब जाएगी, कंपनी हमें निकाल देगी, भगा देगी, और हम बहुत ज़्यादा स्ट्रेस ले लेते हैं. आई थिंक when I made my first mistake, I think आई वॉज लिटरली आँख में से आंसू आ रहे थे क्योंकि थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा था. तो मतलब तुम बहुत सारी चीज़ तुम्हारे दिमाग में चलने लगती है और एक दो दिन आगे के बहुत स्ट्रेसफुल जाते हैं. तो ऐसा था कि आई थिंक आई एम प्रीटी मच श्योर दैट यू हैव आल्सो मेड दैट काइंड ऑफ मिस्टेक, यू माइट हैव मेड इट. सो कैसे इसको हैंडल करनी है और फर्स्ट मिस्टेक, और क्या क्या चीज़ें जो हेल्प कर सकती है इसे ओवरकम करने में?
Two, three things. First is even experienced developers commit mistakes. ठीक है. Believe me, when I was at Urban Clap and it was my second week, right? And as at Urban Clap में frontend का उस समय बाद में they improved a lot, but उस समय CI/CD pipeline was not that great. ठीक है. So क्या हुआ कि I created a fix, ठीक है, and somehow I forgot to run TypeScript check on. ठीक है. There was some TypeScript check missing. ठीक है. They did not have a TypeScript check filter on production कि यार TypeScript में कुछ error है तो वो build रोक दे. That check did not exist at that time. ठीक है. And I sent it. The person who was reviewed it. He merged it. किसी को नहीं दिखा. ठीक है. And like it started going to production.
Okay.
ठीक है. And you would think यार right कि वो production पे जाकर फटेगा. Anyways, तो what happened is कि मेरे को सडनली रियलाइज हुआ कि ओह शिट देयर इज अ टाइप इशू. ठीक है. एंड उसके चक्कर में कंपाइलेशन में कुछ इशू है. ठीक है. सो आई वेंट टू माय मैनेजर एंड आई वाज लाइक शिट गलती हो गई, फट जाएगा प्रोड, आप बिल्ड रोको. ठीक है. एंड माय मैनेजर आई थिंक ही हैड लाइक 8-9 years ऑफ एक्सपीरियंस. ठीक है. एंड ही वाज लाइक वो भी एकदम ही आल्सो गॉट वेरी हाइपर कि हां सही प्रोडक्शन तो फटेगा तो बिल्ड रोकते हैं. ठीक है. एंड किस तरह से बिल्ड उस समय लिखी हुई थी पता नहीं क्या हुआ. ही कैंसल्ड द बिल्ड. ठीक है. एंड फॉर द नेक्स्ट 5 minutes पृथ्वी पे से अर्बन क्लैप की वेबसाइट उड़ गई. ठीक है. So if you would have visited urbanclub.com, it would have shown you a white page.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we both started panicking, right? मैं तो panic कर ही रहा था because the code was mine. My manager was also panicking. Why did the whole website suddenly vanish when you cancel the bill? Right?
Yeah.
So then there back we got hold of the DevOps guys and we were like, yes, फट गया सब फट गया सब फट गया. And they finally reverted the build quickly. So it lasted for around 5 minutes. Okay. Then we were supposed to write an RCA about it.
Okay.
RCA is like a small doc, root cause analysis that you write.
Yeah.
There was a production issue. What happened? What went wrong? What could have been done better? Whatever. Okay. So something as major as this happened way in front of my career. I was like 4.5 years experience. Post that. Okay.
Yeah.
It happens. You are human. It will happen. Most of the time, especially if I talk about junior people, right? Most of the time, if a junior person is able to send a bug to production, it's someone else's fault.
Yeah.
कोड रिव्यू में पकड़ा जाना चाहिए, ठीक है? आपके ESLint के चेक होने चाहिए to catch that, right? So mostly if a young person breaks something, it's usually fault of someone else, ठीक है? So we do not really give that much load to the younger person. So if suppose there is a guy who has 2 months of experience, ठीक है? And I reviewed his PR, ठीक है? And वो production पे जाके फट गया. He will not be asked कि you will write an RCA. I will be asked to write an RCA.
Yeah.
Right? That is how good companies function.
Yeah.
And expectation तो होता ही है. And फाड़ोगे, production फाड़ोगे, हर कोई फाड़ोगे. ठीक है? If someone says कि नहीं मैंने कभी जिंदगी में कभी इस तरह का कुछ पाप नहीं किया, he is probably lying.
Exactly.
Right? But yes, as you grow, right? As you grow, these occurrences become less and less.
Yeah.
Right? And like you should actively learn about things on how you can reduce the number of bugs that you write.
Yeah.
Maybe you can, if you do not use ESLint actively, maybe talk with people around, talk with devs around to introduce ESLint in your project, right? Other time वो type check or if you are using TypeScript, right? So a lot of bugs that you face वो TypeScript figure out कर लेगा.
Yeah. Even ESLint will catch a lot of your bugs if you are.
Lot of bad code. It catches a lot of bad code.
Yeah.
Suppose कोई property कहीं तुम इधर से उधर pass कर दिए तुम, you are doing something wrong.
Yeah.
It oftentimes it catches it.
Yeah.
Right. So that is one thing. And second, focus on how your code is solving the problem. ठीक है? एक तो ESLint syntax वाले problems figure out कर लेगा. But the second type of bugs are business bugs.
Yeah.
For example, discount 100 देना था तुम 200 दे दिए discount and now the company has suffered a loss of 1 lakh rupees.
Yeah.
I've seen people do this. I've seen the people send this to production. नहीं पैसे लेते company developer से. अच्छी companies, good companies will not charge you for this.
Yeah.
तो एक अंदर जो डर होता है ना कि I did a loss to this company and वो मेरे सैलरी से काटेगा.
Yeah. So मेरे साथ ऐसा एक एक्सपीरियंस हुआ था. तो I was in पेमेंटस. So मैं एक स्क्रिप्ट नोट.js पे लिख रहा था जो कि ऑटोमेटेड पेमेंट जो भी पर्टिकुलर पर्सन का ड्यू होगा तो वो स्क्रिप्ट बेसिकली उस बिलर पे पेमेंट करेगा. तो मैंने उसमें ये था कि जितना अमाउंट यूज़र डालेगा उतनी ही पेमेंट करनी थी. बट मेरा स्क्रिप्ट ने क्या किया कि जितने टोटल अमाउंट ड्यू था उसको ही पे कर दे रहा था. तो उसमें क्या हुआ कि और मुझे उसके बाद क्या हुआ स्क्रिप्ट को मैं टेस्ट किया. तो हम लोग टेस्ट जब कर रहे थे तो लाइव किसी बिल्डर पे कर रहे थे किसी वेबसाइट पे. वो बेसिकली एक ऑटोमेटेड स्क्रिप्ट था. सो मुझे पे करना था एक्चुअली $5 का. मैंने $5 लिखा बट एक्चुअली में उसका टोटल अमाउंट ड्यू पे हो गया. और वो सारी की कॉस्ट कंपनी स्टार्टिंग में जब हम टेस्ट कर रहे थे तो कंपनी अफोर्ड करती है सारा का सारा. तो उसका अराउंड $464 में था क्योंकि हम वो था. तो मैंने सबसे पहले जब वो पेमेंट हो गया मैंने तो कैलकुलेट किया डॉलर्स इनटू नंबर्स. फिर मैं देख रहा हूँ यार मेरी तो पूरी मंथ की सैलरी चली. सो आई पैनिक्ड अ बिट बट आई थिंक द फर्स्ट गुड थिंग दैट आई डिड कि सबसे पहले जाके अपने मैनेजर को जो इन्फॉर्म किया कि भाई ये गलती हो गई, ये पेमेंट हो गई है मेरे से. और मैंने स्क्रीनशॉट ले लिया था उस पेमेंट उनका, वी कैन सी एक्चुअल पेमेंट. तो मैंने उसका लिया था. तो उन्होंने बाद में आई थिंक दे वर वेरी नाइस. आई मीन व्हाट आई वाज एक्सपेक्टिंग, दे से दैट ओके योर कोड एटलीस्ट पेड द थिंग, सो दैट्स नॉट थिंग, बट मेक श्योर दैट यू लर्न फ्रॉम इट एंड द नेक्स्ट टाइम वी विल पुट अ चेक दैट द मैक्सिमम अमाउंट वन कैन पे शुड बी लिमिटेड टू $20. ताकि ये गलती ना, क्योंकि उनको ये क्या कि जो कार्ड होनी चाहिए वो भी एटलीस्ट दे शुड बी देयर इज अ फॉल्ट फ्रॉम देयर साइड ऑल्सो, कि जो पेमेंट होनी चाहिए मैक्सिमम हम लिमिट कर सकें एटलीस्ट टेस्टिंग मोड में. So, yeah,
So
that's the thing.
that is correct, right? So what I've seen is a good company will will make you write an RCA, definitely.
Yeah,
Matlab,
yeah.
expect to write an RCA if you do a money loss,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But a good company will like figure out कि यार क्या ऐसा हम कर सकते हैं कि इसके money loss आगे ना हो. What is missing in our processes जिसकी वजह से money loss हुआ.
correct.
Right? And like if someone is listening to this advice, if you grow up out in your future, you are like 8-10 years experience, right? Try to incorporate these values wherever you work. Try to figure out what is the root cause.
Yeah.
And one of the good things that I appreciate about companies like Urban Clap and Razorpay is that they will make you write an RCA. ठीक है, आप लोग थोड़ा बहुत तो सुनोगे कि यार क्या किए, ठीक है, that happens. But they will focus more on कि what was the miss in the processes, right? कि how did this go to production? क्या review नहीं हुआ? If the review was missing, can we improve on the review process? Can we put some automated checks that some big bug does not happen, right? So that's how it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the learning here is that ki it's okay to accept that we can make these kind of blunders, but we should learn from them and try not to repeat it as much as we can.
Try not to repeat it. Also, एक और चीज है कि when you are developing something, right? Suppose you did a blunder and now you have to learn from the blunder. ठीक है? Learning वाले की बात कर लेते हैं. तो figure out कि what exactly happened जिसकी वजह से ये गलती हुई.
Right. Yes.
एक तो कंपनी अपना एनालिसिस कर रही है, दैट इज डिफरेंट. यू एज अ डेवलपर किस तरह से तुमने कोड लिखा या क्या सोच रहे थे कोड लिखा जिसकी वजह से ये हुआ.
राइट. यस.
वेन यू डिस्ट्रैक्टेड देन मे बी यू शुड फोकस ऑन कंसंट्रेटिंग मोर. या फिर तुम जिस तरह से कोड लिखते हो उसमें कुछ इशू है, राइट? ट्राई टू गेट टू द रूट कॉज कि हाउ वाज आई एबल टू सेंड अ बग टू प्रोडक्शन. वो तुम्हें खुद की ग्रोथ में हेल्प करेगा.
Yeah, that's interesting discussion. Yeah, so let's keep moving forward. So another thing is that ठीक है, mistake हो गया and then it's been around 8 or 9 months and probably a year. But sometime this happens after reaching to this point is maybe, for example, you are in an organization where you are not actually contributing much, and that can happen because every organization have their way of doing things. So it might be possible that you are not contributing much based on the requirement. Now one thing at this point of time happens is that once you go through your, maybe you went to the Jira board, you see okay everyone is doing really good things, they are contributing to the features and सब कोई काम कर रहे हैं, but मैं उतना ज़्यादा contribute नहीं कर रहा हूँ, right? So you start feeling like कि मतलब either यहाँ पे दो चीज़ आती है, एक सेल्फ डाउट आता है और दूसरा आता है कि यू गेट बिट ऑफ मतलब वो हिट करता है कि तुम क्यों नहीं कर रहे हो, मे बी यू आर नॉट केपेबल इनफ, और मे बी मतलब फिर तुम बोर हो जाते हो, या मे बी एक जो होती है ना कि यू डू नॉट गेट अलाइन विद द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, एंड वो एक मोनोटोनस सी चीज़ आ जाती है क्योंकि तुम करना चाहते हो बहुत कुछ बट उतना कर नहीं पा रहे हो. एंड दिस इज बेसिकली ये वाली चीज़ जो सैचुरेशन लेवल हिट होती है ये आ जाती है बहुत लोगों के केस में, एक टाइम पे तो आती है. तो इसको कैसे हैंडल करें, और जब ये सब चीज़ें आती हैं तो इससे कैसे बाहर आए?
दो तीन चीज़ें हैं. फर्स्ट इज that make a habit of interacting with your manager regularly, right? Your reporting manager, right? And if you at any time feel ki yaar I'm not getting good enough work, I'm not getting challenging enough work, talk to your manager. So how often do you think you should interact with your manager or have these conversations with your manager?
I think around 2 weeks is more than enough.
Yeah, definitely. That's like a good threshold to have.
Yeah.
Talk with your manager in about 2 weeks. Meeting set up kar lo. In fact, set a recurring meeting.
Yeah.
Right. Every 2 weeks, you have like a half an hour session with your reporting manager. Right. Talk to him what went well, what did not go well. ठीक है. Don't be shy. इसकी सिर्फ अपनी बड़ाई कर रहे हैं. It's okay to talk sometimes कि यार ये this did not go well. Right. And be open about the fact कि you're not being challenged enough.
Yeah.
And if you are open about that fact and you have a good manager, he will take care of that. Because from my perspective, companies में काम की कमी नहीं है,
Yeah.
right? So either they will give you different work or they will assign you to some other team. They will figure it out. Because when you say कि you want more challenging work, it's always good for the company.
Yeah.
उनको चाहिए,
Yeah.
right? But if say you are in a company and 3-4 महीने तक even after communicating with your manager nothing is working out and you are like feeling कि यार मैं क्या time waste कर रहा हूँ यहाँ पे, I think अगर इस situation में फंसते हो and the manager is not able to solve it and you have tried to escalate it to someone else, maybe senior manager या director से बात किया यार ऐसा ऐसा है, like I need some other project या something more challenging, ठीक है, and it's not working out, then it's time to quit, ठीक है. सी मेरा सिंपल सा फंडा है लाइफ में, ठीक है, यू मतलब अ डेवलपर क्या बोलते हैं इज नेवर हाउ शुड आई से वो इंफीरियरिटी कॉम्प्लेक्स फील करते हैं ना, ठीक है, इंफीरियरिटी कॉम्प्लेक्स के लिए जगह ही नहीं होनी चाहिए किसी डेवलपर को. यू क्रैक दैट इंटरव्यू, यू आर डूइंग योर वर्क, ठीक है, एंड आपने 6 महीने तक काम किया एंड देन समथिंग वेंट रॉन्ग, ठीक है, काम में मन नहीं लग रहा या व्हाटएवर, राइट, it's not because you're a bad developer.
Yeah.
This happens. This is like a normal psychological phenomena. It can happen due to n number of reasons. Maybe the work is not good.
Yeah.
Maybe the work is good, but there is something going in your life जिसकी वजह से तुम परेशान हो, इसकी वजह से नहीं figure out पा रहे.
Right.
Maybe you're depressed, right? Maybe you're in a bad team. Or maybe there's some miscommunication going on in your team. Bad team का वही मतलब है. At the end of the day, वो भी developer है. Mostly it happens due to miscommunication, right? Maybe you have a bad manager, right? So a lot of factors come. ये सारे factors eliminate करने के बाद आता है कि maybe I am a bad developer.
Yeah.
Right? So whenever you face a problem like this, think about all these factors first, right? उसके बाद खुद को क्वेश्चन करो कि अच्छा मुझे थोड़ा सा इम्प्रूव करना चाहिए.
या सो यहाँ पे एक चीज़ है कि जैसे कि होता है कि कुछ कंपनी में यहाँ पे जो मैनेजर होते हैं, जैसे कि मुझे ये सिचुएशन हिट हुआ, मैंने मैनेजर से बात करने की कोशिश किया बट वो बात नहीं हो पाया, मे बी दे आर सेइंग दैट दे आर बिजी और ड्यू टू समथिंग, एंड यू आर नोटिसिंग कि ये 2-3 महीने में कंटिन्यूसली हो रहा है, राइट. सो ऐसे केस पे जनरली जो ज़्यादातर लोग हैं वो लोग सोचने लगते हैं कि आई नीड टू स्विच टू दिस कंपनी, बिकॉज तुमने डिसाइड कर लिया कि तुम्हें स्विच मारनी है यहाँ से, क्योंकि यहाँ पे तुम कंट्रीब्यूट नहीं कर पा रहे हो. बट यहाँ पे स्विच करते समय बहुत से लोग ये सोचते हैं कि ठीक है, जब तक मैं इंटरव्यू देना स्टार्ट करता हूँ और जब तक नया कंपनी नहीं मिलता है तब तक मैं काम करते रहता हूँ. सो और सम पीपल बेसिकली आई मीन नीड गट्स टू क्विट एंड देन उसी टाइम क्विट करके फिर प्रिपेयर करके दूसरी कंपनी में वो करते हैं. बट यहाँ पे कन्फ्यूजन आती है बहुत लोगों की. बहुत सारे लोग होते हैं कि मे बी कभी कभी क्या होता है, बहुत सारे लोग अपने कंफर्ट जोन में चले जाते हैं, ठीक है उतनी काम नहीं आ रहा है तो ठीक है ऐसे चलते रहो, है ना. बट यहाँ पर क्या है कि दो चीज़ है कि कैसे अगर तुम कंफर्ट जोन में जा रहे हो, कुछ लोग जा रहे हैं कि ठीक है ज़्यादा काम नहीं है बट ठीक है पैसे तो मिल रहे हैं, तो वो कंफर्ट जोन उसे कैसे अपने आप को रोकना चाहिए. और दूसरा कि जब तुमने डिसाइड कर लिया तो शुड वी वेट फॉर कि ठीक है जब तक इंटरव्यू दे रहे हैं क्रैक होगी फिर स्विच मारते हैं, क्विट करते हैं, या तुरंत क्विट करो फिर प्रिपेयर करो, क्योंकि अभी के मार्केट के जो चल रहा है इंडस्ट्री में, आई थिंक द रिक्वायरमेंट्स आर वेरी हाई, राइट. सो व्हाट यू विल सजेस्ट?
I'll answer your second question first. ठीक है. It depends on the person. ठीक है. अभी कुछ दिन पहले मेरे एक जूनियर का फोन आया था. We were so there 2 instances happened recently. ठीक है. तो दोनों का बात करता हूँ. First एक जूनियर का फोन आया and he was like working in a very good startup. Like उसका manager was a very shitty man. And in general वो जिस टीम में काम कर रहा था वहाँ की टीम का कल्चर का ही इशू था. ठीक है. The way the expectations were and how you know the work was going on, it was not good. ठीक है. And he felt that he was being abused in work. ठीक है. गाली गलौज वाला नहीं, मतलब वर्क वे में जिस तरह से अब्यूज होता है, राइट. रात में बिठा के रखा हुआ है, जाने नहीं दे रहा, प्रेशर बना रहा है, जाने नहीं दे रहा, समथिंग लाइक दैट. तो ही टॉक विद मी एंड आई वाज लाइक नहीं भाई इतना अगर फील कर रहा है तो छोड़ दे. ठीक है. उसने क्या बोलते हैं लाइक ही स्टेड इन दैट कंपनी व्हाइल गिविंग एन इंटरव्यू एंड दूसरी कंपनी क्या बोलते हैं वो किया, वो आ गया उसमें दूसरा। सेकेंड केस दैट हैपेंड वाज, मेरे को अभी कुछ ही दिन पहले एक जूनियर ने फोन किया एंड मैं इससे डिस्कस कर रहा था, ही वाज लाइक सर मैंने जॉब छोड़ दी। अच्छा, ही वाज लाइक जॉब छोड़ के सर्च कर रहा है। तो द फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन आई आस्क्ड हिम कि क्या तेरी सारी लायबिलिटीज कवर्ड हैं, राइट? बिकॉज व्हेन यू गेट इनटू दिस काइंड ऑफ एज, people start having liabilities.
Right.
For example, home loan है,
Yeah.
ठीक है, महीने के 40,000 रुपए मान लो तुम्हारे होम लोन में, जितने भी जा रहे हैं, तो are you able to satisfy those liabilities, ठीक है, or not, right? और लोगों की फाइनेंशियल फैमिली कंडीशंस होती हैं, जो बहुत सारी चीजें होती हैं, राइट, विच डिपेंड्स ऑन पर्सन टू पर्सन, जो डिसाइड करता है कि शुड दैट पर्सन टेक दैट रिस्क और नॉट। तो इसका कोई तुम्हारे आंसर दे ही नहीं सकता कि इसका एक सही आंसर है, राइट? समवन इज सेइंग इट, दिस इज द करेक्ट आंसर, ही इज प्रोबेबली रॉन्ग, इट डिपेंड्स, राइट? सो फिगर आउट तुम्हारा क्या बोलते हैं फाइनेंशियल लायबिलिटीज कैसा है, how is your family condition, do you have anything else in your mind, what do you want to do, right? If you have everything sorted out and you feel कि नहीं मैं तो छोड़ सकता हूँ, कोई दिक्कत नहीं, मेरे पास पैसे पड़े हैं अकाउंट में, मेरे होम लोन पे हो जाएंगे, just leave, ठीक है? It doesn't matter if you want to leave. Otherwise, give priority to those liabilities first, because क्या होता है कि अगर तुम ये बोलते हैं ना डेयर, तुम बोल रहे थे ना कि जोश में आके या फिर डेयर करके, वो बड़ा काम नहीं कर रहा है, वो डिसाइड कर रहा है, राइट? सो यू हैव टू डिसाइड योर ओन लाइफ, डोंट कम डू इट एज अ डेयर कि मैं तो छोड़ के दिखा दूंगा कंपनी, ना ना ना, ये कॉलेज के लौंडे ऐसे करते हैं, डोंट इनकॉर्पोरेट दैट इन योर पर्सनल प्रोफेशनल लाइफ, राइट? फिगर आउट एट वेयर यू स्टैंड, उसके बेसिस पे टेक योर डिसीजन, एंड तुम्हें कोई इसके लिए मतलब शेम नहीं करेगा. It's fine if you stay in the company and while looking for a job, it's fine if you quit it.
Yeah.
Right? Second is getting yourself out of
comfort zone.
Right? Think of it like this. If at each point of time, yeah, हर महीने के end में, right? Maybe book an half an hour for yourself. Yeah. Just sit down, okay, and think about it. One of the things that you can think, बाकी तो like it's a good way to meditate, but one of the things that you can think is, क्या मैं अभी ऐसा कोई काम कर रहा हूँ या क्या अभी मैंने कोई ऐसा काम किया about which I can talk to a prospective employer. Right? For example, मैंने अभी तुम्हें बैठ के अपनी पूरी हिस्ट्री बताई थी. Right? I have a lot of things that I can talk about.
Right. Yes.
Right? So figure out if you are doing something जो तुम किसी को बता पाओ अगले इंटरव्यू में.
Yes.
If you are not able to do something like that, talk with your manager. You are not being challenged enough. अगर तुम्हें सिर्फ छोटे-छोटे bugs fix करवा रहे हैं, ठीक है, शुरू के कुछ टाइम के लिए it's fine. Everyone fixes bugs, right? But if you have been doing that for like 3-4 months continuously, maybe it's time to stop and talk with the manager कि नहीं, I want to do something else. Because होता क्या है, skills पे rust पड़ता है.
Yeah. A developer can rust, and this is another thing. Yeah.
That happens.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah. Okay. That's okay. Let's move forward. So एक चीज़ है कि ठीक है, ये हो गया, और मतलब कंफर्ट जोन नहीं है और सब कुछ सही चल रहा है, तुम काम कर रहे हो और चैलेंजिंग वर्क भी है, यू आर डूइंग इट. But now at some point you start thinking about, for example, you are working in the front end, you started working in the front end, and now you are in basically the senior front end engineer, and with this span of time, I think you can see that how front end has changed. It has evolved over a period of time. Now once everyone start asking them, okay, अब ये कर रहे हैं, ठीक है, चैलेंजिंग काम है तो तुम बहुत कुछ सीख जाओगे, बट उतनी चैलेंजिंग काम नहीं, बट तुम कर रहे हो. बट हम पूछते हैं कि ठीक है, अगर मुझे नेक्स्ट लेवल पे हिट करनी है ना, मे बी मैं टारगेट कर रहा हूँ SD2 रोल के लिए या उससे बड़ी रोल के लिए. सो हाउ शुड, मतलब मुझे क्या क्या चीज़ें सीखनी चाहिए. लेट्स टॉक अबाउट ओनली फर्स्ट इन द पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ फ्रंट एंड इंजीनियर, कि एक फ्रंट एंड बंदा है, वो 1.5 साल काम किया, एंड देन दे वांट टू बेसिकली स्विच टू नेक्स्ट लेवल SD2 पे. तो उनकी रोल और रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी कैसे डिफरेंट होती है, और क्या क्या बेसिकली मुझे काम करना चाहिए जो कि मैं उस SD2 के लेवल पे जा पाऊँ.
So देखो, when you become an SD2, you are supposed to have you kind of get a lot of decision making powers.
Yeah.
ठीक है, कौन सी लाइब्रेरी यूज करनी है, क्या करना है, किस तरह से कोड लिखना चाहिए, right? You start to have opinions around that.
Yeah.
Right? So if there are many ways I can look at it, but one of the things that I usually advise to people is one of the biggest difference that you can create is after reading the source code of the library that you're using.
Okay.
For example, React.
Yeah.
React and React DOM.
Yeah.
ठीक है, everyone uses it. ठीक है, but if you spend some time reading the source code of React and React DOM, उससे तुम्हें जितना ज्ञान मिलेगा ना, ठीक है, you will be able to internalize कि यार चीजें किस तरह से हो रही है internally, right?
Yeah.
And if you are able to do that, you will be able to, when you see a code, you will be able to see, अच्छा, this is wrong. ठीक है, वो जो एक कॉन्फिडेंस आता है ना कि कोई चीज गलत है, कोई चीज सही है, राइट? वो वाला कॉन्फिडेंस आता है, एंड दैट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर एन SD2 टू हैव, बिकॉज व्हेन यू आर एन SD2, तुम्हारे पास बहुत सारी वो आएंगी, कैपेबिलिटीज आएंगी. फॉर एग्जांपल, पीपल विल स्टार्ट लुकिंग टुवर्ड्स यू फॉर कोड रिव्यूज. लेकिन एज अ फाइनल कोड रिव्यूअर, पीयर रिव्यू तो होता है, बट यूजुअली एक होता है ना बंदा जो साइंस ऑफ अ कोड, you start getting into that kind of a role. So you should be able to distinguish कि whether a particular piece of code that I'm seeing ये सही है कि नहीं है, सही नहीं है तो क्यों नहीं है, सही है तो क्यों है. You start having justifications for these things, right?
Yeah.
When you start having justifications for these things, so you become some somewhat of a senior as compared to a SD1. SD1 बस code लिखता है, कोई और review करता है, and that is it.
Yeah.
Right? So that is one thing. Secondly, SD2, as an SD2, in fact, such बताओ, it doesn't matter. You can actually start these things even when you're an SD1.
Okay.
ठीक है, जल्दी growth मिलेगा, right? So you don't wait for becoming an SD2 कि नहीं SD2 बन जाऊंगा तो फिर ये शुरू करूंगा. तुम ये शुरू करो तो मैं SD2 बना देंगे.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's that. Secondly, when you are an SD2, you are expected to have much more idea about the architecture, how the data is flowing into your application, right? Whether your application is scalable or not. ठीक है? If it is not scalable, why is it not scalable? What is something there which is stopping it from being scalable? Right? You should start to have opinions around these things. As a fresh SD1 does not care about scalability that much.
Yeah.
Right? He just wants to write code and get features pushed. वो SD2 में भी करोगे, but at the same time you will be expected to have an opinion around the architecture, around performance, like how things are going, how things should go, right?
Yeah.
Secondly, as an SD2, you are expected to, usually in good organizations, you are expected to bring some sort of change towards, for example, Razorpay में I am working on migrating to TypeScript.
Yeah.
I felt कि TypeScript जरूरी है.
Yeah.
ठीक है. I wrote a doc explaining कि and you are supposed to write a doc.
Yeah.
Write a doc. I wrote a doc explaining कि these are the benefits of TypeScript. This will help us here. I had a discussion with my manager. Manager told me this doc's looking good. आगे बढ़ो. I interacted with the rest of the team and I tried to convince them कि अच्छा let's do TypeScript. ठीक है. So you as an SD2 is supposed to bring out these ideas, right? Think about what is not good, what can be made better, write a doc around it, and आगे बढ़ाओ काम.
Yeah.
SD1 से ये सब expectation नहीं होती.
Yeah. So you mentioned one term here in this that is scalability, right? Now, when this term basically people, especially the for freshers, when they listen this term scalability, the general thing is that okay, backend servers scalability वहाँ पे आते हैं, right? But there is a lot and performance itself, right? Now, but there is a lot in the front end also. When there is a lot that you can do in the front end also, and there are very few limited information out there. I feel that I think maybe I am wrong. There is a very less information out there, maybe at public platforms, where people talk about scalability and the web performance in the term of front end applications. So can you explain on that thing?
Yeah. See, so traditionally scalability का जो मतलब होता है, ठीक है, people expect कि लाइक सर्वर्स पे मान लो 10,000 रिक्वेस्ट आ रहा है, 50,000 रिक्वेस्ट आ रहा है, इट शुड बी एबल टू अडैप्ट. ठीक है. फ्रंट एंड पे ये स्केलेबिलिटी के मतलब हाउ शुड आई से, देयर इज अ वर्ड इन हिंदी, मायने बदल जाते हैं. ठीक है. हाउ? Because at each request you are sending some sort of payload to the client. Right? ठीक है. Are you writing code in a way so that you can add as much component, as much business logic that you want without bloating your code? मतलब that is very important. People do not realize it, but at the end of the day आप client को JSON तो नहीं दिखाओगे. Right? Right? You will show something to the client. There will be lots of components. There will be lots of business logic here. इस button के click पे you should open this modal. Right? Whatever. Yeah. So product will always keep on coming with the features, right? And you have very limited bandwidth. So यहाँ पे scalability का मतलब होता है you should be able to accommodate as much features as you want in your application without bloating your code. मतलब नॉर्मल जावास्क्रिप्ट लिख के और 50,000 लाइन का कोड लिख के कोई भी एप्लीकेशन बना सकता है. The difference between a good developer is that he should be able to do it like in the most performant way. And performance, it's not just about load times. It's also about how your code is organized that other people, are able to contribute to your code. Yeah. Right? Because at the end of the day, it's less about writing code and more about reading code. Because तुम जितना काम कोड लिखोगे नहीं ना उससे ज़्यादा दूसरों को कोड पढ़ोगे. Right? If your organization has the right practices set so that reading your code is easy, a new developer which comes to your organization should be able to like start developing code within like 2-3 days. Right? Yeah. I have seen legacy code bases जहाँ पे like 2-3 हफ्ते लग जाते हैं लोगों को समझने में. अच्छा ये यहाँ से ये हो रहा है. तो these things take a lot of time and money, right, for an org. So do you have right practices on the front end so that you make these things easier? Yeah. So I can like say this is also kind of like a stick scalability. It's not just about requests.
Yeah, I think one problem that here we just recently faced at Postman was that in front end we were getting too much request for the same API call from the front end and to the internal service, and after some time people they figured out that basically the front end was calling the same endpoint at different from the different component, which could have basically reduced and the data could have been present maybe at a center place and it could have been shared. So this is the one scenario where I think being a developer we should see that okay, am I making too much calls to the service? Can I basically hold this data at some place and reuse it at some other component?
That is one way to go about it. Second is key. It's about paradigms. So one paradigm is key. You should make one API call for one thing that you want to do. Yeah. जनरल एक्सपेक्टेशन क्या होता है बैकएंड वाले का, दे क्रिएट सम रेस्ट एपीआईज एंड दे एक्सपेक्ट कि यार फ्रंट एंड वाले सारे को हिट कर लें. ठीक है. आई पर्सनली थिंक दैट इज नॉट अ गुड थिंग टू डू. What should ideally happen in my perspective is if you have one particular task that you want to achieve, right, you should have one API call that kind of gets you everything. Right? If not one, then as minimum as possible. Right? So a lot of these unnecessary business logic that exist on the front end can be pushed out into या तो back end में, right? You can push them out in the back end, or you can have a federation layer like GraphQL, जहाँ you are taking care of these things, right? And इसी scalability आती है somehow.
Yeah. So सही है. I think हमने ये discuss कर लिया. So another question that is interesting is if we sum up everything, and I ask you that okay, now you have to restart your journey again. So what are the tips that you are going to give to yourself right now?
यार अभी whatever advice I gave you, I basically will give these advices to myself. But at the end of the day, one of the best advice I can give is if you join a product company, ठीक है, get to know the product inside out. It doesn't matter if you're not a product manager. मतलब even though it's not your role, ठीक है, but if you understand your product inside out, तुम्हारी value बढ़ जाएगी इस company. अपने आप, even if you do not write a single line of code,
Yeah.
ठीक है, because uh, people will come to you to understand a particular piece, ठीक
Yeah.
है, you become a knowledge center of the company, and companies don't like to get rid of their knowledge centers,
Yeah.
ठीक है, तो you are cementing that place there,
Yeah.
and कंपनी का तुम फायदा ही कराओगे, कंपनी को नुकसान नहीं कराओगे.
Yeah, but if we can talk about in terms of quality, that what are some qualities? Basically, now you are at a senior level. When you basically look for a candidate, right? What are the qualities basically, or even in your team? What are the qualities that you basically look for and expect that these are the qualities that should be present in a developer or software engineers that basically can help them in their growth?
See, like two, three things. First is at Razorpay, यहाँ पे थोड़ा hiring अलग होता है. We do not ask DSLO questions, especially to front-end developers, right? Because day-to-day work में we do not write DSLO,
Yeah.
right? There's that. But anyways, irrespective of whatever, when you are giving an interview, if you are vocal about whatever you know, right? You should be, if I try to summarize it, you should be able to drive that interview, right? I actually I interviewed in Paisa Bazaar back in like 2017, 18 के आसपास, right? And I was not that good at DSI at that moment. It's front end. I do not do it in my day-to-day life, right? So I was not that good at it. So I interviewed with them. They were very nice people. I did not end up joining them, but सारे interviews clear किए थे मैंने. When the DSL round came, so initially there was like front end round, right? All front end. And I was very vocal about the things that I'm doing. Performance किया है, ये किया है, वो किया है. I can improve the page load time and things like that. ठीक है? Then came the DSL round, and I honestly told them कि देखो अगर बहुत tough question पूछोगे तो मैं reject हो जाऊँ.
Yeah.
ठीक है? I literally told them that. Not a great move, to be very honest.
Yeah.
Doesn't work with everyone. But मैंने बोल दिया उनको. Somehow they understood कि अच्छा, okay, तो he वो ask के लिए simple पूछेंगे तो चलेगा. हाँ, why not? ठीक है. तो they asked me some linked list questions. ठीक है. पूछा उन्होंने, मतलब DSI को पूछा, but linked list पूछा तो linked list like it's kind of doable.
Yeah.
Right. तो वो solve हो गया, and they were very happy. They were happy because I was able to communicate the value that I can bring to their organization.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So it gets very difficult to reject people when it is very obvious that you will be a great fit in their organization.
Right.
Okay? So at times तुम्हारा DSL को रैंक उतना अच्छा नहीं भी जाता है ना, तो people थोड़ा बहुत फीडबैक लेते हैं पिछले वाले राउंड से. पिछले वाले राउंड वाले बोलते हैं कि यार इसका तो स्किल बहुत सॉलिड था, प्रोडक्ट नॉलेज बहुत तगड़ा है, तो वो थोड़ा बहुत अगर वीक हुआ है, आई एम नॉट सेइंग कि पूरा एकदम बर्बाद कर दिया DSL. थोड़ा मतलब you should be able to communicate your ideas and all, ठीक है, but your previous round feedbacks count. जो कंपनी पहला राउंड DSL को लेती है उसके बारे में मुझे कुछ नहीं कहना. तो उसमें ये सब नहीं करता, उसमें रिजेक्ट हो जाता. मेरे को टी मोबाइल से रिजेक्ट किया था. आई वेंट टू टी मोबाइल्स इन गुड़गांव एंड उन्होंने they handed me a paper and they were like these are 5 DSL questions, please solve it, and वो चला गया बंदा. ठीक है. And the guy was not there. मैं थोड़ा बहुत अगर मैं brute force solution भी बताता तो क्या ही कुछ था ही नहीं वहाँ पे. ठीक है. I was like ठीक है बढ़िया. So I did not clear that round.
Yeah.
So it's okay. Okay, you'll end up finding a good company. There is like shortage नहीं है company में.
Yeah, even at Postman, there's only one DSA round, which they ask only one single question, and that is a very less weightage, I think. So yeah, what do you think about this thing, this scenario, in the people shifting towards without DSA interviews, and especially in the front end? What do you think? More companies are going to do that, or one, if you are basically a front end developer, you should totally focus on development and not on DSA?
No, see, I think of it like this: as an engineer, ठीक है. So I was working at urban company, right? And मेरा role वहाँ पे engineer का था, right? I was not a product guy, ठीक है. But I was very involved in like product में क्या चल रहा है, how we will be able to drive our metrics somehow, right? So it was something that I ended up doing there, ठीक है, तो उसके लिए मुझे प्रोडक्ट की टर्मिनोलॉजी सीखनी पड़ेगी कि अटैच रेट क्या होता है एंड लाइक हाउ कस्टमर बिहेव्स एंड थिंग्स लाइक दैट. ठीक है, it's very similar in the debate about DSL. If you are expected to do DSL go, or if you are expected to create some algorithms at your job, right? बहुत सारे होते हैं जहाँ पे रिसर्च साइंटिस्ट की तरह हायर करते हैं. जैसे मशीन लर्निंग साइंटिस्ट. इफ यू आर मशीन लर्निंग साइंटिस्ट, ठीक है, then you are expected to know all those machine learning algorithms, so that you will be able to come up with some algorithms of your own. ठीक है. If you are just like एक वो होता है ना, एक ML इंजीनियर होता है वो जिसका काम होता है सिर्फ पाइपलाइन सेटअप करना, ठीक, then उस केस में you should not be expected to know each and every algorithm. You should definitely have a high level overview, ठीक है, but you should not be expected to know all the algorithms. यहाँ तेरे को कोई क्रस्का लाना ही चाहिए, ठीक है. That should not be the case. So it depends, right? And यहाँ पे the thing is कि a lot of managers have been, hiring managers especially, have been very lazy about it. Where they see कि यार Google कर रहा है तो अपन भी कर लेते हैं. Whereas the right thing should be, a hiring manager should think कि the role for which I am hiring him, ठीक है, will he ever need to be able to grasp DSL को, मतलब be able to do well at DSL. grasp वही लोग हैं, ठीक है. If no, then you should not ask DSL for the interview. ठीक है. But you should check the aptitude कि कभी जरूरत पड़ी, ठीक है, तो ये बंदा सीख लेगा. And you can gauge this from a lot of things. About how he has done in his previous job, about how he is interacting with you right now, about things he does not know. Right? So a developer is not supposed to know about it, but a hiring manager should gauge कि यार कभी जरूरत पड़ा तो सीख लेगा क्या, ठीक है. And if you are a good developer, you will show that confidence कि हाँ definitely.
So yeah, I think it's been more than 1 hour. It's been a quite interesting discussion. Doesn't feel like that. So last question. This is my last question. Is now you have reached. You have working as a senior. You have senior engineer. My question is कि how do you grow yourself? Right. There are a lot of things that goes around the tech world, the industry. कैसे आप अपने आप को ग्रो करते हो, और अगर कोई जो बंदा है जो 1 साल 1.5 साल 2 साल के एक्सपीरियंस पे है, वो कैसे ग्रो कर सकते हैं अपार्ट फ्रॉम वर्किंग मतलब जो डे टू डे करते हैं.
सो लाइक जॉइन हैकर न्यूज़, ठीक है, गेट टू नो व्हाट इज लाइक कूल हैपनिंग इन टेक अराउंड, ठीक है. थोड़ा एक हाई लेवल ओवरव्यू रहेगा ना, तो यू विल बी एबल टू क्विकली ग्रास्प कि यार क्या आजकल हॉट है, ठीक है. Pick one thing that you want to eventually achieve. Okay, where do you see yourself? If you want to see yourself turning into a product engineer kind of a guy, okay, so read about things, how product managers work, how does a customer think. If you see yourself कि नहीं यार मेरे को तो product वाला का feel ही नहीं आता, मेरे को एकदम hardcore engineer बनना है. Get to know about architecture. Knowing about architecture never hurts. In fact, it helps you grow at each and every stage. मैं ये एडवाइस किसी 10 साल एक्सपीरियंस वाले को या 15 साल एक्सपीरियंस वाले को भी दूंगा ना, it will be a valid advice. Get to know the architecture. Senior manager, CTO, director, सब सिर्फ architecture में बतियाते हैं, right? They mostly do not care about low level code. So if you are thinking about growth, you should be very familiar with how things are architectured, right? And you should be able to communicate about it. कि तुम्हारा क्या सोचना है इस पर्टिकुलर आर्किटेक्चर के बारे में. Like I told you, right? This is what I think about front-end scalability. I may be totally wrong. ठीक है? उतना भी नहीं, but हाँ, I can be wrong. ठीक है? But this is my opinion that I hold. ठीक है? And I gave you some arguments about it. ठीक है? हो सकता है किसी को वो argument नहीं पसंद आए. But they will be able to appreciate कि हाँ, he is holding a position, he is able to give some argument around. Try to get into that position where whatever you are doing, you are able to justify. हाँ, मैं ये सोच रहा हूँ, ये इस वजह से सोच रहा हूँ. ठीक है, थोड़ा बहुत आगे पीछे सही गलत, that is subjective. So
yeah, that's a part of a discussion. At least you are in a position where you are communicating, discussing about a particular thing. So that's
exactly.
Yeah. थैंक यू सर, आई थिंक इट वाज रियली रियली इंटरेस्टिंग. आई थिंक मेरे भी बहुत सारे डाउट्स एज अ पर्सनली मुझे काफ़ी हेल्प मिली, बहुत इंसाइट मिला, एंड मेरे बहुत सारे डाउट्स थे जो कि क्लियर हुए. आई थिंक इट्स रियली इंटरेस्टिंग टॉक, एंड थैंक यू फॉर फर्स्ट एग्रीइंग टू दिस पॉडकास्ट. And I think this is very much new. I think I just thought, I mean, I was struggling to find my some of the answer. I was reaching out to some person, so I thought that okay, why not basically have this kind of discussion, because there is a very less of this thing, right? So thank you for
Right.
agreeing and having taking your time and giving this podcast.
It was pretty nice talking to
Yeah,
you.
same here. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah.